Well, hello there, and welcome to the living room of the dollhouse for another reading from The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and Joost Elfers for March 6th, the day of the beauty lovers. That's right. And here at the top of the page is a visual representational image of the day of the beauty lovers. So we have us an image of, what could it be? Well, it looks to be a seahorse. That's right. And he's kind of mirrored upon himself. I don't know if it's a male or female. I can't quite tell. I'm not a what you call marine biologist there, but he seems to be looking at himself. If it's a he. Does that speak to the day of the beauty lovers? Now, who's to say? I don't know if it's altogether all too important there, the visual representational image. I just like folks to kind of see what's going on a page in front of me. That said, what is important around these here parts is it's March 6th, and so it must be somebody's birthday. And in that respect, wishing somebody a happy birthday is what's important around here. So if March 6th is your birthday, I just want to say happy birthday, all right? But if this video finds you late, I don't know, days, weeks, months, whatever the case may happen to be, well, I hope you had a happy birthday in that circumstance. But for everybody else who's joining us randomly, I just want to say hello, welcome, and I hope you enjoy yourself. Now, before I dive in with the birthday reading direct, something I like to do around these here parts, and that is roll some dice. That's right, this is the DykASSt or birthday broadcast, so I like to live up to the namesake, but I do so more importantly for synchronicity's sake. And here I rolled a 1 and a 6 for a 7. Now, what is synchronicity, you're probably wondering? Well, my friends, as I hear it told, the universe, the higher powers that be, will oftentimes put things in our path to help us realize our goals and manifest our aspirations. But as I also hear told, a lot of the times we're very narrow or singular of focus as we get on with our commute to work or just running the errands out there every day, every other day, whatever it may be. So we're very narrow of focus. We got the blinders on, if you like. So we may not see the things that come into our path, the things the universe is putting down for us. So this is a little bit of an experiment to help us get those blinders off and recognize the things that the universe is trying to show us, all right? Now, how do we do that? Well, we need some kind of a sign that's mutually agreed upon between us and the universe, something we can follow, if you like. That's right, your daily numbers. Now, you don't have to go with the numbers I rolled for you. The intention is there, but it's probably advisable you get your own set of dice so you can get out there in the world and start letting the universe take the wheel, if you like, all right? That said, maybe pick a place near and dear to your heart if you want to try this out. I oftentimes like to bring up the town square, but let's go to Main Street today. Yeah, let's say you go to Main Street, all right? That said, get those blinders off, like I said. You never know. The day might start to take on a little bit of a theme. Let's take the visual representational image, for instance. The seahorse, right? The one that's mirrored upon itself. Hey, you know what? You might start to see images of seahorses out there, all right? It doesn't necessarily have to be the visual representational image, but you got to keep your eyes going, soaking up everything like a sponge in case something like that begins to just enter in on your day. Or it could just be mirrored images, things that are stacking up against each other, juxtaposed, if you like. So keep your eyes out, all right? That said, you get after this first leg of your journey. Maybe you're not seeing much of anything, all right? You know what? Take it in stride. You're out there getting your steps in at the very least, so that's a plus right there. But that said, maybe you just take a step back, look around, see what you see, and you might just so happen to notice you're in front of a building with a 7 in the address, all right? Maybe take that as a sign you're on the right path. I don't know, maybe no sooner do you see as much, recognize as much, and maybe a bus pulls up in front of you and there's an advertisement for the local aquarium. And what's in the advertisement? That's right, a seahorse. Hey, you know what? Another example, you might be on the right track there. Assuming the seahorse is the thing that's entering into your day there, like I said. But again, hey, you know what? Such things might start to present as advertisements or murals on the sides of buildings. You just got to be open to them and start taking note of those things that might start to repeat in your day. Kind of as a coincidence or some kind of synchronicity, if you like. That said, maybe the bus doesn't stop long enough for you to get on because you're like, oh, that would have been a great sign. Ride the bus, right? So I would say maybe roll your dice to find out how long to go in the direction that the bus was going. And maybe no sooner is the end of that time limit elapse, say you find yourself in front of another building with, I don't know, maybe this time it's a 16 in the address, or, 61, whatever the case may happen to be, or maybe it's got your visual representational image as an advertisement in the window. I think you get the idea. These synchronicities, these coincidences, they're kind of starting to stack up. Maybe no sooner do you consider maybe going into that building, hey, boom, hey, you bump into somebody that you haven't seen since college. Maybe that's been 10, 20 years, who's to say? Or maybe someone from elementary school if you're younger, I don't know. But hey, you start to rekindle kind of what's going on. Hey, I haven't seen you in 10, 20 years. How about that? You're like, what are you doing out here? Wait, did I see you rolling some dice? Hey, you know what? Just be open, transparent about what you're doing, even if it's not someone you know, someone who asks you what you're up to. And just show them this video, show them your dice, kind of explain things, and they're apt to say, well, that's insane. And you go, I know. And they go, this synchronicity thing, I don't know, I just wanted to shake things up a bit, if you like, dice notwithstanding. And they might say, yeah, no, that's crazy too, but what's crazier is it's my birthday too. All right, that's right. You get out there, you get yourself open to the universe, putting things down in your path. You might be surprised at what starts to stack up, all right? So if you see, taste, touch, smell, even just a little bit of that kind of magic, I think you understand why I brought it up. So I think you get the idea. Let's get on with your birthday read. All right, your month is March, your day is the 6th, your sign is 14 to 16 degrees Pisces of the Pisces II period specifically, and your quality and element is mutable water. All right, March 6th, the day of the beauty lovers. An irresistible attraction to beauty is central to the lives of March 6 people. Less often an aggressively forceful or passionate attraction, but rather a subtly magnetic one. And March 6 people find themselves drawn to certain people, situations, environments, music, drama, and the arts that please their senses. They themselves often have attractive powers in their own, or of their own rather, which they may not fully realize. Easygoing March 6 people need to spend time getting to understand this power and how it can work for them if they wish to be more successful in their careers and progress in their personal development. Now, March 6 people may be easygoing or going along peacefully in certain direction when something or someone catches their eye. And though they may view this thing of beauty but for a brief instant, they cannot get the image out of their mind. And irresistibly they are drawn to it, and before they know it, they are caught. And perhaps this is due to their unconscious sensitivities or even psychic powers and the nature of romantic attraction and how it works. And March 6 people tend to project their own series of internalized and idealized pictures out on the world, at least an unconscious set of strong expectations, especially when viewing that which strikes them as beautiful. They often do not see what is really there, but rather what they wish to see. And perhaps what they see reinforces and complements their internal needs. Thus they may, like Narcissus, be actually falling in love with their own reflection. Oh, there we go with the seahorses there, right? Many March 6 people are highly aesthetic creatures and willing to devote their lives and, if necessary, sacrifice themselves to their ideals. They themselves are capable of inspiring great admiration and even adoration of others. And such attraction might be called irrational were it not for the fact that it often satisfies concrete objective concerns and needs. And for March 6 people, all forms of sensuous experience, to say textures, sounds, colors, smells, and tastes, combine in a kind of bouquet which buoys their spirits but sometimes overwhelms them. And some born on this day may well become slaves to their desires and attractions. But for many March 6 people, the purely sensual does not satisfy their need to adore and appreciate beauty. They need to do far more, to idealize the object of their affections, and once having done so, to share their life with it, and perhaps even merge with it. Unfortunately, disenchantment and disentanglement are two possible painful results when an initial ecstatic period of involvement has faded. And for those born on March 6, learning to be objective in handling their attractions and attractiveness is key to their maintaining control over their lives and fulfilling their potential as human beings. All right, how about that for a very specific theme for the day? And they even really expanded out from there within that respective theme. It wasn't the most well-rounded birthday breakdown that I've come across, but here nor there, I still think it was pretty fascinating. So I hope you did too. That having been said, I often like to provide a little bit of a commentary here on the things we read. Also, maybe where it lines up with other days in the period writ large, maybe even just the book. So let's dive into a little bit of a commentary, if you like. All right, March 6th, the day of the beauty lovers. All right, you're said to have a subtle magnetic attraction to beauty versus an aggressive or passionate attraction to it, which is somewhat interesting because I wouldn't have thought there were degrees of irresistible attraction. But it's a novel note to keep in mind, I would say. There are more than a few people this period who are drawn toward not just the humanities, but the beauty in everyday things and occurrences. Difference being, I'm assuming they may be prone to letting it have a little bit too much control in their lives, or you would rather have a little bit more of that propensity there, especially if, or no, strike that, reverse it, I said it right. Because if your attraction is subtle, then theirs must be overwhelming, all right? And you may be able to avoid the drawbacks associated with such extremes. I think I just got it twisted in my head because it seemed like what they were talking about with you during the breakdown was a bit extreme. But that said, it may also speak in no small part to having powers of attraction that you don't fully realize, like they said in the breakdown. Something the reading claims that the more easygoing folks, born on this day, they should cultivate to advance their personal development. The reading then goes on to relate that you may catch sight of something that captivates you completely, even if you've only just glimpsed it for a moment. It's pretty interesting. Some more otherwise metaphysical verbiage is employed to convey this particular dynamic, and I'm hardly one to poo-poo such things, but they rarely come up in the book, so it's interesting to hear about such things. They talked about psychic phenomena and the like, that really only comes up in this particular period, or for a Neptune day, which we'll get into here in a little bit. By extension, with this dynamic, you may possess the ability to project your own visions and your expectations out into the world, which I'd argue may work out for you well if you have an innate capability to inspire worship and adoration in others, especially if that aspect is true. Another trait also rather common in this period, as it turns out. But for you, this dynamic, it's a little bit different, I would say. And it may, in fact, be one of the most fascinating paradigms this period. To say how many similar characteristics take on such realizations, but with just few subtle differences. I noticed a lot of through lines that have been weaving their way through this Pisces period, and you would think they're all kind of the same, but they take on such different colors, if you like. They're not quite the same, even though they're in the same theme, I think is what I'm trying to say. But again, for you, it manifests in a highly unique way, from simply lifting your spirits to overwhelming you, they said, especially if the unique and novel way of simply all those things combining into a bouquet, they said, are apt to kind of sweep away your sensuous nature, overwhelm you. Just mind you don't become slaves to your desires and your ardor or your love for beauty, all right? There may be a painful come down and takeaway from your full potential as well. All right, you might get a little bit too possessed. That's when those extremes come into the chat room there, if you like, kind of as they mentioned, because you have that subtle draw where the other folks got the extreme. So in any event, a little bit mumble mouthed there, but hopefully I got my ideas across there for you. And before we move on to your numbers and your planets. All right, that's right. We mentioned Neptune. Let's get into Neptune here. Those born on the 6th day of the month are ruled by the number 6 and the planet Venus. All right, don't get confused just yet. Those ruled by the number 6 are magnetic and attracting, but also expressing both sympathy and admiration. And for March 6 people, the added influence of Neptune, which is the ruler of Pisces, may push Venusian tendencies in the direction of sentimentality and impressionability. Often love becomes the dominant theme in the lives of those ruled by the number 6. All right, so the beauty and the love. All right. What I have to say about your numbers and your planets. And this one was a little bit of a copy-paste job in certain respects, but I think they took the two dynamics and kind of married them together for you. But yeah, a lot of the same said dynamics that have been coming up in days previous were kind of seeded through here. I just make mention of that because some days they highly personalize these things. But this one, not so much. Any event, let's see if I can pick up what some might consider slack in that respect. The number 6 in Venus for magnetic attraction and expression of sympathy and admiration. Venus is the planet where love often becomes the dominant theme. And if you hadn't yet guessed, a love of beauty. All right. As mentioned elsewhere in the book, both sensuous and idealistic forms of this much. All right. I'm assuming. Though it is seemingly mentioned more in terms of an either-or prospect here, interestingly, in this particular entry. With the coupling of Neptune, the watery planet of dreams and visions, lending to traits for a concern for romanticism and higher ideals. And I know that wasn't mentioned here, but those are something that Neptune tends to push people towards. And they also have a magnetic influence to dissolve barriers between absolute and rigid natures. And I would say that in no small part is all throughout the breakdown there. So it makes a lot of sense that some of these things are coming together in the very unique way that I said they would manifest for you. So it makes sense why you would also possess capabilities for both, all right? Both the sensuous and the idealistic, considering the two dynamics present, or the various dynamics present in those two planets. So also a heightened capacity for those magnetic traits that they mentioned is why you may get overwhelmed by them all, I would say. So there is a lot going on, even though there's just two planets. And a lot of the times when many things are going on, it's a cusp period, because there's usually 3 different rulerships, planets, sometimes 4, depending upon the period. I think Scorpio had Mars and Pluto as a ruler, so on those cusp days, they had all sorts of stuff going on. But for just 2 planets, in your case, I'd say there's a lot of different dynamics at play, and you're getting influenced by all of them, if we go by the breakdown. So in any event, that's what I'd say about your numbers and your planets. So let's move on to your tarot. That's right. One of the more eclectic of the New Age metaphysical ideologies, but it's here in the book. So let's just see what it has to say, and then we can leave it here, all right? A lot of the times they'll bring up things that often dovetail very nicely into the breakdown, help kind of bolster the idea that some of those things may be true. That said, sometimes not, so we'll just have to see. So let's dive into it here. Emphasizing this last point is the fact that the 6th card of the major arcana is the Lovers, symbolizing the love that unites all of humanity through integration of masculine and feminine polarities. On the good side of this card indicates affections and desires on a high moral, aesthetic, and physical plane. On the bad side, we have unfulfilled desires, sentimentality, and indecisiveness. And too often, March 6 people think they are living in a most desirable, blissful state, when actually they are either slaves to their desires and or their passions, or under the strict control of some less impressionable individual. All right. Very interesting. Typically, the tarot is always a copy-paste job. Outside of the fact they might put a little button on the end like they did here for you. But for you, I would say that's a pretty big little button, all right? There might be some impressionable individuals affecting you. So that shakes up the dynamic altogether there. So in any event, what I had to say about your tarot. Let's get into it here. All right, the Lovers, for love that unites through integration of male and feminine polarities, for affections and desires on the highly moral, aesthetic, and naturally the aesthetic and the physical planes. All right, so all the bases, I would say, but negatives of unfulfilled desires, sentimentality, and indecisiveness. All right, there are too many options. I can't decide. Maybe that's why. By and large, your emotions and your ardor or your love for romanticism concerns, they may be driving you a bit too much, if we're going by the tarot there. That's what it sounds like anyhow. Not a bad thing, I would say, but provided you can be objective in your handling and your balance of such considerations, all right? Balance and objectivity, also moderation being watchwords that just color the entire book, I would say, and self-awareness being another one. So be in control. That recommendation was kind of thrown in at the end of the breakdown. For one of your higher tier correlations between the tarot and the breakdown, I would say. So make sure you find your balance and don't be slave to your passions, all right? However they may happen to manifest. So thought it was a pretty apt card, and it was nice that they threw that particular switcheroo dynamic at the end of it to button it there for you. Something interesting to think about, because they weren't talking about people who may grab or steal your attention in the breakdown. They were just talking about how you might do it. So pretty interesting they brought that up. That said, that's been your tarot, so let's move on to your health. All right. Those born on March 6 will generally want to surround themselves with as much beauty as possible. Long walks in the country and regular vacations far away from the bustle of cities are strongly advised, if possible. All right. Gardening is a perfect hobby for March 6 people if they have access to a flower bed or a vegetable patch, and since it can provide needed exercise as well as aesthetic satisfaction. All right. Improving their health can be seen by March 6 people as a way of enhancing their appearance as well. And the more sensuous born on this day have to watch diets which can too easily go in the direction of highly fattening foods, particularly those with an excess of animal fat. Controlling such urges can be difficult, all right? And though denial is an item that is foreign to many March 6 people, they must get to know it better if they wish to accomplish their goals. All right. Denial. Okay, that's been your health. What did I have to say about it here? Okay, drawn to beauty, okay? So a marriage with such things in the field of exercise, all right? Pretty interesting dynamic there. Also, personal welfare with as much is recommended. So walks in nature and the like. So somehow finding a synthesis with that which drives you, all right? Not often something that comes up in the health entry. So pretty novel in that respect. What else do they have to say here? Realized on another day this period was the idea for beauty insofar as diet is concerned. But with regard to them, it was because they appreciate the appearance of how food is plated in exotic ways. That was a novel entry for them. For you, it's taken in a different sensuous consideration, but the art form of it seems to be baked into it, the beauty of as much. Though you may get a little too fun and fancy free with it, especially with the rich foods if you start to overindulge. So be mindful of that. Practice moderation and control of your urges, as difficult as that may be. A little anomalous that the sexual concerns weren't brought up in the health here today. Oftentimes that appears to be the case whenever sensuous things are brought up, especially those that overwhelm. They tend to warn against sexual appetite as well in those respects. So it's a little bit anomalous. It's not here, especially as frequently as it's been coming up this period. So I would say just be mindful of that as well, even though the reading didn't bring it up. And so take all that stuff in stride, I would say. And don't be a slave to the love of things, all right? Or the passions and the like, all right? Just be mindful of that stuff. I said you can be overwhelmed, as we've said before. So any event, that's been your health. Let's move on to some advice. All right, here we go. Not only beauty is worthwhile. All right. Beware of being too easily seduced by it. All right. Discover your real source of power and use it constructively. What about your personal development? Question mark. All right. Now, sometimes one must move on, no matter how painful the separation may be. All right. A lot of times they don't propose questions in the advice. So, interesting thing to think about for you. All right. What did I have to say about what they had to say? All right. They said not only beauty is worthwhile. Very interesting. All right. I'm assuming you realize as much. All right. You're probably a smart individual, level headed to some extent, I would hope. But it's a healthy reminder for when you're potentially ascribing double rainbows and the like just a little bit too much value. All right. So it's probably helpful for you to be mindful of as much. Okay. Don't ascribe too much value to the beauty there. And they also don't get too seduced, all right? That was the other piece of information they said. Discover the real source of your power, okay? And use it, all right? I like this one. And I could take it to mean that your whole life, it could take your whole life to figure that kind of thing out, all right? And that's where the real work is done. Self-awareness, kind of like I said, a major watchword theme for the entire book there. And that's where the real work is done, like I said. So, yes, what about your personal development? Something else they said there. There's also beauty to be found and developed there, I would say. And there's personal value baked into that respective bargain, too. There's beauty in self-awareness and actualization and the like. So, think about maybe applying some of your efforts towards that, I would say. And merging with it too. They said you merge with the things that you find your passions. That could be a little bit difficult, so don't become a slave to such things again, all right? You're the one that wags the tail, not the other way around. And that little piece of advice has been coming up quite regularly this particular period. Also, I could say the ripping away of relationships or endeavors of as much. You know what? They don't have to be devastating. All right. Don't ascribe too much to such things. When they mentioned how painful separation can be, and one must move on. All right. Stew on such things a little bit. Do what you have to, but don't wallow in the self-pity. All right. That's been coming up a lot as well. Even though, it's easier said than done. All right. Just keep pressing forward and, give that stuff its time for sure, but then put it away because you got things to do today and you know it's going to come back up again. Then you give it its time again. All right. So don't forget it altogether. That's next to impossible, but just get your time back once you've given it your time. So that being said, that's been your advice. So let's move on to your meditation. That's right. It's your birthday. You get something to think about. We'll meditate on if you like. All right. Falling in love too easily and too often may in fact be an expression of disaffection with oneself. Oh, I like this. This is good for anybody, but it's just for you. All right, once more, falling in love too easily and too often may in fact be an expression of disaffection with oneself. All right, hey, pretty profound, I would say. In any event, that's been your meditation. I'm not going to throw my spin on it or my interpretation of as much. It's your birthday or meditation. It wouldn't help you in those respects. I will say, however, I didn't notice much stuff coming up with the relationships in the breakdown. So it's very interesting. They started bringing that stuff into the theme of the day as we got on with the read. Happens occasionally, but here nor there. That said, your meditation in the can, as it were. Let's move on to your strengths and your weaknesses. All right, let's hold up that objective mirror and see where you got the girth and otherwise maybe a little more atrophied within the metaphor. That's right. Your strengths, your aesthetic, Hey, we knew that one. You're attentive. Interesting. And you're devoted. All right. But your weaknesses. Oh, let's hold that objective mirror back up, but flip it to the side that blows up your face. Maybe it shows off the things you're otherwise a little more, what do you call it, sensitive to. All right. Those insecurities you got. That's right. Within the metaphor, naturally. Your weaknesses. You're complacent. Oh, that's an ugly look. Complacent. Oh, what else are you? Over-sensuous. Oh, we knew that one, didn't we? And you're adrift. Interesting. You know what? I think these are all new. Outside of complacent, I'm sure that's come up before. But over-sensuous and adrift, those are weaknesses? All right. Pretty interesting. That said, I often like to make a case that our strengths and weaknesses being considered, sometimes our weaknesses can be strengths. It just depends on the situation and how we use them, all right? I also like to make a case to say our strengths are going to help us overcome our weaknesses if there's something that needs to be improved upon. There was one day a couple months back where impulsive presented as a strength, and the very next day it traded to a weakness. So it's pretty interesting that on days so closely juxtaposed to the other, that particular trait would flip-flop. Again, I just think it depends on the individual who's in possession of said trait and how they use it in the situation. But that said, how can your strengths maybe help you improve upon your weaknesses? Well, you're aesthetic. You're going to find the beauty in things. We turn that beauty in on ourselves. Be a little bit of a narcissist, if you like, in a healthy way. Hey, we're going to notice what do we need to improve upon ourselves. And then you're attentive. You're going to put the attention on it. And, when you put attention on something, what do? You address it directly, all right? And you're devoted. You're going to be devoted to yourself to improve upon it, all right? But a case for your weaknesses being strengths, this one might stump me a little bit. This past week, I've been doing a bad job making my case, but let's see if we can crack it here. Complacent, how could that be a strength? A lot of the times I like to use the example of you're at work and they want to give you some project to take on, but you're not the best person for it. How do we get out of this? You know what? You got to put on your complacent hat and start kind of showing where you got the weaknesses. All right. And I often like to also say it's a little bit of an unsavory kind of thing to do. But hey, maybe there's stuff that you're really angling for. But also recognize a lot of times people put you in a position of testing you to see if you will rise to the occasion. So complacent, I don't know, maybe too, sometimes we need to be a little complacent. Sometimes people fixate on things a little bit too much. And so if you got the complacency, hey, maybe you know how to shut things down a little bit, how to dump things out, if you like. Just don't let it get out of hand. Also, it's interesting if the relationships or the passions overtaking and overwhelming you, there's an instance where you need to pull that back. Maybe we can rally our complacency. What do you do in those instances when you are complacent? How can you shift that dynamic over to something where you do need to compartmentalize it more? Forget about it if you like. I would say that could be a strength in those regards. Over-sensuous. Oh, how's that a weakness? I don't know. They said that things can overwhelm you. Oh, all the beauty's coming in, these double rainbows that they get me to the point where I might just, that kind of thing, all right? Yeah, outside of the fact that it looks a little weird to the onlooker, or it might just literally overwhelm you in some sensuous way. You know what? That's not healthy out in the real world. Not always a place to clean up, am I right? Within the metaphor, all right? So, hey, you know what? That might be a weakness, but how is it a case to be made for a strength? Well, I would say if you're over-sensuous, hey, you're going to get those kinds of releases a lot easier than your typical fare, all right? So, hey, you know what? The hat I'm not wearing is off to you in those respects, but again, just be moderate with it, all right? Like I said, you don't want to be caught without a wet nap out in the real world while you're going on your synchronicity walk, right? Trying to get them seahorses to present. That's right. But you know what? Maybe you roll the dice, have the universe show you the best way to some napkins. All right. Says you're adrift. Excuse me. The bronchitis get hold of me. All right. You're adrift. How could that be a strength? Well, let me see here. Letting the universe take the wheel. All right. Perfect. You're able to let things happen in their due time, their due course. All right. Sometimes we need to be able to take our hands off the wheel and just let things happen. A lot of folks aren't willing to do that. And I can see it could be a weakness. You do it a little bit too much, all right? You got to be in control of things sometimes, all right? But sometimes if we just let things go and do what they do, we're apt to see really good results and not be as, anal retentive as some of these other folks, all right? So I would say it's a strength if you can bring it into a certain kind of alignment there. So you got to recognize these situations, when to use them, when not to use them. But I think we made a decent enough case today, even though one of them kind of seemed a little bit not so serious. But in all respect, it probably is a little serious there. Over-sensuousness. In any event, that's been your strengths and weaknesses. Let's move on to those born on this day. And when we get into those born on this day, not only do we get to see who shares your company, but something I like to do is use this as an opportunity to maybe start getting some inspiration to figure out our passions. That's right. It says your passions may overtake you. What if you don't even have a passion, all right? You don't know what it is. A lot of the times I get out in the world and meet folks, ask them what they do, and more importantly, if they like it, and they don't. And I think that's because they don't have a passion. Or if they do, they haven't found a way to make it work for them or be financially viable. So it takes a back seat. And I think this is the perfect opportunity to start examining that. Get our fires rekindled, to start chasing after, carving out time, putting in the energy to figure out how to bring that more to the fore in our lives, all right? Because if there's anything I can wish for someone on their birthday, it's that they're chasing after a passion and they have something in their lives that they find fulfilling. So let's focus on those born on this day with that in mind. Get those fires rekindled, if you like. All right, here we go. Those born on this day. We start off strong with a lover of beauty in Michelangelo. That's right, the Italian Renaissance master sculptor, designer, architect, and Sistine Chapel painter, as well as a poet. We also have Gabriel Garcia Marquez, the Colombian-Mexican Nobel Prize-winning short story writer and a novelist of 100 Years of Solitude. We also have Cyrano de Bergerac, perhaps, and there's a G in there, so I'm not quite sure, but a Spanish soldier, a poet, and a dramatist, and responsible for Voyage to the Moon, and fought more than 1,000 duels over insults to his big nose. Oh, is that the guy that they always see with him? Who knows? All right. Oh, who knows? All right. Valentina Tereshkova, a Soviet cosmonaut and the first woman in space. Bear with me, folks. I'm going to mispronounce like all of them, all right? But I'm going to give it the college try there if you like. Elizabeth Barrett Browning, a British poet and responsible for sonnets to the Portuguese. We also have Ring Lardner, a short story writer and a humorist. We also have Wes Montgomery, the jazz guitarist and innovator, it says. Dame Kiri T. Kanawa, a New Zealand operatic soprano. And we also have Andrzej Wanda, W-A-J-D-A, Wanda, a Polish theater film director, hyphens in a weird place there, and responsible for Man of Iron and Danton. We also have Rob Riener, the comic TV actor, and Meatball in All of the Family, as well as a film director. We have Mary Wilson, a singer of the Supremes. Lou Costello, there you go, the comedian, film actor of Abbott and Costello fame. Who knew he was a lover of beauty? Interesting. We also have Dick Fosbury, a U.S. Olympic gold medal winning high jumper, and it says revolutionary back first jump, considered the Fosbury flop. We also have Ann Curtis, a U.S. Olympic two-time gold medalist and the first woman swimmer to win the Sullivan Award. We also have Willie Stargell, a Pirates baseball outfielder and the first baseman. Was nicknamed Pops, and a two-time National League home run leader and an MVP. We also have Flora Pirium, Brazilian singer, Lauren Mazel, conductor. We also have Tom Foley, a U.S. Congressman of Washington and a House Speaker. And we also have Alan Greenspan, the Federal Reserve Board Chairman, and Marion S. Barry Jr., the Washington, D.C. Mayor. All right. Hey, I know it's a big ask, tall order to try to take inspiration from other folks' accomplishments, but again, maybe me just putting the bug in your ear help you start stirring up the fires. Because once again, like I said, if there's anything I can wish for you on your birthday, it's that you've got something to start doing backflips out of bed in the morning to get on into, because you find it fulfilling. All right. That said, I know I butchered a few names in there, so let's make up for it on my side of things. It's not done in malice, it's just hooked on phonics isn't the best tool for pronouncing names, and in my case, just words in general. So that having been said, that essentially rounds out your birthday reading, except to say your season is winter, your sign once again is Pisces, of the Pisces II period specifically. And your quality and element is mutable water. And this has been March 6th, the day of the Beauty Lovers, from The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and Joost Elvers. You know, it's pretty interesting that the visual representational image, we were able to make a connotation with it. They brought up Narcissus, or whoever that Roman emperor was, or what have you. And the narcissist angle there, and the mirror image there. They don't often line up. But that said, I have an affiliate link for this book down in the description, right above a personal message I like to put together for the birthday boys and girls, ladies and gents. So give that a look if you're interested. But this makes an amazing coffee table book if you're in the market to, I don't know, host a party or just have company over. And I don't know, maybe you find it a little bit difficult to get the ice broken, or you just want some new novel way to do as much. This is going to get it done for you for sure. It's going to do the lion's share of the heavy lifting in that case as well. So the affiliate link's down there to save the hassle of having to type it in a browser, and it helps the channel out in the bargain. So I'd appreciate if you do that in that respect and you're interested. That said, the book having been relayed, not altogether all too important here. What is important, like I said at the top, wishing you a happy birthday. So once again, happy birthday, all right? And for everybody else who joined us randomly or more ideally to celebrate the March 6th birthday, I just want to say I hope you enjoyed yourselves, took something of value even though it's not your birthday. You know I derive a lot of interesting tidbits from such things, so I hope you did too. With that said, lest I forget before I take us out, your daily numbers, all right? Get out there, let the universe show you it's with you on your path. And if you see, taste, touch, smell, intuit, feel even just a little bit of the magic that I tried to correlate, I think you understand why I brought it up, all right? So it's been a pleasure to celebrate your birthday with you, so I want to thank you for the privilege of your time. So take care of yourselves. Don't let your passions wag the tail there, if you like, or the vice versa. The passions wag the dog, and yeah, just be careful, find your passion, and have a happy birthday. All right? Take care of yourselves.